Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the NCARC TechNet. We run this every Monday at 6 p.m. for the purpose of answering questions about technical issues related to ham radio, talking about various topics so you can learn more about them, and helping us to become more acquainted with how things work and why they work the way they do. That's important knowledge to have when you're into amateur radio. We do have a presence on YouTube, and each of these nets can be listened to after the fact on YouTube. You can also join us on Echolink at W0UPS-R. And ask questions that way. We welcome that. Let me reset. So our topic tonight is, what is a weather spotter? This was recommended at one point by various people, and it thought it might be a good idea to define it just a little bit. I'm trying to look at my notes here real quick. Such questions as what equipment? Let's see if I can get it more where I can read it. What equipment do I need to be a weather spotter? How much does that equipment cost? What training do I need? How much does the training cost? What is my time commitment? When I am a spotter, what is my time commitment? Various things like that we can answer for you. So let's start by taking a few check-ins and find out who's here. Give me your call sign phonetically, your name, and your location, if you would, please.
This is Kilo 0 Papa Romeo Bravo, Phil in Loveland, with Kilo 0 Lima Alpha Oscar, Luann.
AE0BQ Alpha Echo 0 Bravo Quebec, Daryl in Longmont.
Kilo 0 Delta Bravo Echo, Debbie in Fort Collins.
November 0 Echo Mike Papa, Greg in Fort Collins.
Okay, let's see. Our first 4 or 5 here, N0EMP, K0DBE, AE0BQ. Daryl, good evening. You're fairly new anyway for us, I think, but I believe you've been here at least a couple of times. K0LAO, K0PRB. I don't necessarily always remember everybody, so if you've been here before and I've forgotten, I apologize. Anybody else, please?
This is Kilo Delta 0 Whiskey Bravo Charlie, Pete in Fort Collins.
Good evening, Kevin. Kilo 0, Alpha Bravo Kilo, Alex.
No. Okay, welcome to K0ABK and KD0WBC. Glad to have you. Anybody else, please?
I think I was doubling there, Kevin. November 0, Bravo November Kilo, Rick Mobile.
You must have, Rick. I didn't hear you. But glad to have you. Where are you headed this evening?
I got to go out to Alt and drill and tap some holes.
Ah, okay. You're working on stuff. Well, very good. Glad to hear it. Okay, thank you for joining us there. Anybody else?
Whiskey 8, Papa Quebec, India, Dave, Mobile.
WAPQI, welcome, Dave. Thank you. Anybody else? Well, if there was somebody checking in, I did not hear any audio. You might need to check your microphone and try again, please.
Hello, this is Alpha Echo 0, Charlie Foxtrot, 10 for Hawk.
Okay, I caught Alpha Echo 0 something Foxtrot. You're real muffled, but can you come again with the call and your name?
Starting at Alpha Echo 0, Charlie Foxtrot, 10 for Fort Hawk.
Okay, I got you. AE0CF. Welcome and thank you. Glad to have you there. Boy, we got a new crowd this evening, at least somewhat anyway, but we're glad to have you. So thank you for being there. Anybody else before we launch into things here?
Kilo Bravo 0, Sierra Charlie X-Ray, Georgian Berthoud.
Hey, welcome, George. Thank you for being there. Okay, once again, I want to pass along some info from the from the Longmont Amateur Radio Club. They have a new newbie net on the LARC repeaters. The 2 meter. This is Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. 147.270. That's a plus offset and a tone 100 hertz. It's also linked to 70 centimeters repeater, 448.800 minus, and the tone here is 88.5. those are linked, and you can catch that net every on either repeater. And I'm just verifying that's Tuesday evenings. I'm sorry that I'm so slow reading my notes here. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. in case I said that wrong. So try that out. Enjoy that as well. Okay. Let's see if I can be a little more organized now from here on out. The question for the evening is, what is a weather spotter? We have a combination of folks here that people that are already weather spotters, and I believe a few maybe that are not. And we don't know who we're maybe are listening on YouTube. So for that purpose, would somebody like to start out by giving some basic terminology, some basic definitions of what is a weather spotter? EMP, may I pick on you?
Sure, Kevin. In a nutshell, the National Weather Service will send people out to do free classes to teach ordinary citizens some basics on observing and reporting severe weather, including thunderstorms, tornadoes, hail, things like that. The reason they do this is their radar and other technical equipment they have can only do so much, especially when you get behind the first ridge of granite and limestone in the foothills. They can't see through or behind that stuff. Also, if there's a really big thunderstorm cell, they can't see through it to see other cells that might be behind it. So they train people as volunteers to go out or from home to observe and report these conditions. And after the training, which is free, they get a spotter number and they get a point of contact. So they don't have to be hams, they can be anybody. And they can have a phone number that they can call in and make reports. In the amateur community, we'll also do nets, and people will usually go out mobile and observe and report severe weather conditions. And the net control will collect those reports and forward them to National Weather Service. And what they are not is they're not storm chasers. We're trained not to go chasing after a storm or getting in front of one or getting in a dangerous situation, trying to get close to tornadoes, anything like that. And 0 EMP.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good summary of the whole business there, I think. Let's stop and see, do we have any questions on what Greg just covered here? How long does the training last? It's about, a 3-hour program, usually from 8 to 11:30 or so in the morning here, at least for our purposes in the spring in March. Other places have their trainings at other times, and I believe you can attend any training you wish to get those skills and get your qualifications for spotter numbers. Is that correct, Greg?
sounded about right, about 3 hours. They do a training here every spring at the Fort Collins Police Department in conjunction with an areas meeting. It's usually on a Saturday morning, and they do it before the start of the storm season for the year. So, yeah, probably March.
Okay. I understand there's some video presentations out there. Do you know how people can be qualified by watching those, or if they can be qualified? I've heard some things, and I don't remember the specifics. Do you know anything about that, Greg?
I do not. I do know they have multiple classes in different areas all over the state. Probably even going into later in the spring and summer. I know they start before the season, but they might have classes going into the season. I imagine on the National Weather Service website there's probably a link somewhere. I don't know anything about online training, unfortunately, and Zero EMP.
K0 PRV.
Thank you, Phil. Go ahead.
I have done a little bit of research on this, and I did some reading online. And classes can be available if there are enough participants. You can call the National Weather Service, talk to them, and they will arrange a class whenever, like I said, if there are enough participants who want to put it together. They'll schedule something or have somebody come out based on what everybody else's schedule is too. So, but it sounds like it's very versatile, and they will accommodate whomever so that they can get the proper training. Back to the net.
Okay, thank you. We have this question come up a lot, so appreciate that. No charge for this, and no actual exam, which is kind of interesting to me. Just that you must be there for the training. And however, the let's talk a little bit about what the Skywarn number, spotter number, does for you. We already know that with that you get a number that you can contact the Weather Service, and a spotter number gives them the notion that you've had some training and you know what you're talking about. On our Skywarn nets, what's the importance of the number there? Would anybody like to discuss that a bit?
EMP.
Go ahead.
I know that when the emergency broadcasts go out, of which last week during that one day, they were going off on the local commercial AM radio station every 15 minutes. There was a new update with the tone alert and the cutting into the program, and then an announcement. When they do the announcement of either a tornado or a severe thunderstorm, one line in the announcement is source. And source will either be radar indicated, or they will say trained weather observer or weather spotter. I'm not sure exactly what phrase they use. Or they will say, law enforcement or fire personnel reporting it. So they'll indicate in the broadcast the source of the report, and they'll include trained weather spotter or observer as one of the sources.
Yes, and that also appears on the NOAA weather radio as well. I've heard that show up there as well. So it adds a bit of qualification to the report, that it's not just a casual observer, but somebody who has had some training in recognizing the weather signs and that sort of thing. Any questions at this time from anybody?
PRB with a question.
Go ahead, Phil.
With this training, are there certificates handed out? So should a trained spotter have a certificate or something with them to show that they're a trained spotter? Is that necessary, or just the number is adequate?
When I did it, I got a letter in the mail a few days later with my spotter number and with a direct telephone number where I could call in. So there wasn't really a certificate. They'd just issue a number. And I heard some folks talking on this repeater a couple weeks ago, and apparently if multiple people in one household get certified, they all get the same spotter number.
Excellent. Thank you for that. K0PRB.
Okay, very good. And I'm a little slow in between because I'm occasionally writing, so just so you know, I'm not distracted or anything like that either. But that's also a chance for anybody who wants to ask a question or whatnot, just to throw out their suffix of their call, and I will come back and recognize you. Most everybody knows that by now, but this is just a reminder so that as you've been hearing people throw their call out and I recognize them, and that way we don't have doubles happening and everybody gets a chance to be heard. So there was a comment I was going to make following Phil's there, and I don't have it, so there you go. Okay, any other questions? This is N7GES with TechNet.
K7ABV.
Hi there, Randy. Go ahead.
You asked a question a few minutes ago, and I don't think it really got an answer in terms of what it does on the net. One of the things that it does is, number one, it demonstrates that people have been through some kind of training. The letter designation is representative of the county that you are in, or at least that you receive, that you reside in, and that they issue those separate differently for Larimer versus Weld County. The people over in Weld normally come up with a number that has a W in front of it, where Larimer would have an L as a designator. The other thing that it does is it allows the National Weather Service, when those reports go in and that weather spotter number goes in, they can be able to track the accuracy of the reports that come from individual spotters. And it is one of the things that helps them so that they can be able to improve the training that comes out in the spring. And normally you'll see that the training comes out, it starts in about February and it runs through usually about the end of May. They usually don't have too much after that unless it's by special request. So anyhow, back to you there, Kevin, K7ABV.
Okay, thank you, Randy. That's very interesting because I have wondered about the designators on the spotter numbers, and that's something that I don't believe has ever been covered in our training there. So, and the point that it changes the way they handle the reports and their actual training process. So that's very cool information to know, and that's why it's probably even more important that we make sure and get spotter numbers in with our reports to the NWS as well, and not just the number of the person that's making the phone call, but the person that we are relaying in when we make a phone call, assuming that we are not the one making the original report. So, very good. Thank you.
K1DEG, question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, I was just curious, seeing as how we are doing this on the net here, is it possible that we might be able to accumulate some people that want to have a class? Me and my brother are interested. If there's more interested, maybe we can actually get a class going sometime in the near future. Just a curiosity, if there was any more people interested.
I can get an answer to that anyway. I'm guessing that the Weather Service may be a little reluctant to no, I guess I don't know this for a fact. They might be a little reluctant to give training this late in the storm season, but I don't know about that. Generally, certainly what they want to do is get people trained before the storm season happens, and I don't know about their being available at this point in time. But that, I guess, is a good question to ask, and if anybody happens to know that kind of a situation. From what was expressed here this evening, it sounds like if there's enough interest, contacting the Weather Service might be possible to set up something special, but I'm guessing that it might have to be quite a number of people to set up a specific training for a few individuals.
Yes, sir, and I do understand that as far as the limited amount of people. That's why I was curious if during this net, if there was a bunch of people that wanted to do it, maybe we could collect a list up and then call them and say, hey, we've got X amount of people that want a class. How many people do we need for y'all to set up in a class? Just a curiosity question. I've heard that they will set one up, but how many people does it require?
K7AVV.
AVV, go ahead.
Well, I know he is retired now, but Bob Glancy used to be the chief forecaster down there and in charge of the training, and his criteria was a minimum of 10. But if that's changed since he's left the office down there, I don't know, but I do know that that's what it was in years past there. K7AVV.
That's not a very big number, and obviously we don't know if that's still the policy. They may be a little more short-handed now than they were, and I don't know. But it wouldn't hurt to make a call. I don't know how many of us are new here, but the other thing I guess I would recommend, because I think there are video presentations, And at least, even if you couldn't get in on a spotter class, you could at least see what's involved and see what the training is, and then go through a class later on if it isn't possible to set up a separate one. So let's say it this way. How many people really think they would want to take a separate class out here besides the one that we offered here in March? Even something this summer, which is probably a little too late because I think we're probably headed out of the major part of the storm season at this point in time. But how many people have not had training that would like to get training? Maybe we can take just a quick set of prefixes here, or suffixes.
K1DEG and N0KIN, I'm sure, is on that list, so I don't need to say any more. K1DEG, I'm going to be quiet now.
LAO and PRB would be interested.
QCR, I have interest.
Info.
There was a station just now. I only heard O, perhaps. Come again?
Yeah, info.
Go ahead.
Probably a place to start is the NOAA weather page for Boulder, and they normally have a box on there for spotter information, and so they might still have some classes that are available, but they're going to be really, really tight in terms of time. So if somebody has internet access, well, that would be the first place I'd start, even before a phone call to the National Weather Service there. K7ABV.
Okay. And as far as our net is concerned, we have about 5 people interested, so I think that's what I would do as well. That website is very easy to get to, and is it NOAA.gov? Anybody have that web address right in front of them, easy to get to here?
I don't have the address, but I do know that if you Google NOAA weather radar Boulder, it will bring up the page that's going to have the redirect to it.
Okay, that sounds good. Google is definitely your friend in a lot of areas, but once you get to the front page there, there's all kinds of information there, and one of those is spotter information and training. So you do have that available to you, and anybody has access to that. So I guess I would start there at this point in time, and then go from there. Since we have a fairly small number here, that might be the most expedient way that I could suggest to do it. As well as what I said, if you look up videos, you might at least be able to see what's involved. even if you don't get a spotter number from that. And that is still training that's good to go through and probably worth seeing more than once. This is N7GES with the TechNet. Do we have any other questions about weather spotters, training, usage, what's involved, all of that sort of thing?
Comment?
I believe that's EMP. Go ahead.
Yep, I just Googled Colorado Weather Spotter Training 2018. That brought me to www.skywarn.org, where I clicked on a Colorado map, and they had a list of scheduled classes by region, and looking at the Denver classes, which is the one for this area, they start at the beginning of March, and they go through April, May, and into the beginning of June. The last one looks like it was in Kiowa on June 21st, so we just missed it. And that link actually brings us to weather.gov, www.weather.gov. Boulder Spotter News had that schedule. There is a group. I haven't gone out yet to actually do a respond to an alert for weather spotters with the RNet. There is a group of local hams that do go out when we're activated to spot, and I suspect that at least a few of those folks would love to bring someone with that wanted to go out. And since we're already kind of late in the season this year, if someone's interested in this, they might want to get with someone that responds routinely to activations and ride with them this year, and see what it's about and see how the net works. And you might talk about the net a little bit, Kevin, and linking the two repeaters and all that stuff. But someone might go for a ride or two this year and see what it's about, and then catch the class in Fort Collins next March, probably, and 0 EMP.
Uniform Delta Tango.
Excellent point, Greg. Thank you. The ride-alongs, and I have heard people offer that. UDT, good evening to Ed. Go ahead.
Good evening. As far as the numbers go, I was certified last year, and Jeff was certified this year. I'm Lima Alpha 790, and he's 825. So they will issue two numbers to the same house.
Okay, so you guys must have attended separate years, separate classes, and maybe that's why that happened. So, okay, interesting. Does anybody have info about whether the Skywarn spotter numbers expire? Do they expect you to get training every year? Is there a specific expiration on these? Heard a click, but nothing else.
A slow receiver, I guess. AVV.
Probably. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I know when Bob was teaching, he said there is no expiration. However, their recommendation was that at least every 2 years that people come through the training, because there is things that change from time to time, and they like to keep people up to date on what the current requirement for severe weather is, i.e. the rain rates, the size of the hail, what they're calling it that year, those types of things. Terminology, making sure that that stays current with the things that are being used in the office down there. So their recommendation was every 2 years, but there's no expiration unless you just are not active at all.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I didn't know that for sure. Thank you very much. Okay, other questions?
Yes, comment?
Yes, go ahead. AE0FC, I think that was you. Go ahead. Sorry, AE0CF.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at that spotter website, and looks like there is actually training later on this Thursday in Julesburg, which is a little bit far from here, but looks like it's still going on.
Okay, yeah, you're fairly hard to understand. Your microphone is apparently not functioning quite right, but I think what I heard you say is, according to the website, there are some later classes being offered. Is that, could you give me Roger if that's correct?
Roger.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so everybody can check that out on the website and get the information there. They're pretty good about supplying all kinds of information. So thank you very much for mentioning that. Okay, last call for questions or information on this topic, and then let's open it up for other topic questions here. Oh, Greg did mention to talk about the net just a little bit. We run a net on the two Buckhorn machines, the 146-625 and the 447-700 machines. They both use 100 hertz. They're both negative offsets, and those two machines are linked when there is a Skywarn net in progress. We have two ways of running the net. It can be in standby mode, where there will be occasional weather traffic, but it isn't running continuously, and other calls can be made on the repeater if you keep them short. This usually will occur if there's a watch or the Weather Service is concerned that there might be bad weather, but nothing specifically has been has developed. If weather is spotted of a severe nature, it will go into an active net. The net script at that point specifies to anybody that's listening that regular traffic is not accepted, but only information about the weather emergencies. And it's important to note there that what we don't need is observations from your location that everything is fine or there's only a little bit of rain, but specific information about the storms, whether the net's in standby or active mode. That's important to know, is that we really don't need reports of nothing is happening here. What we really need is reports of a certain nature of a storm thing. And we do have some criteria: hail over a specific size, rainfalls of a specific amount and in a certain time. I don't have all of those in front of me right now. Thunderstorm with high winds, tornado, obviously. Also, hail depths, DEG. I know you had that, and that would have been probably something worth reporting. Hail depths of a certain amount on roads that would cause travel to be difficult. Storm damage that may need to be dealt with. All of those things are reportable. We really don't want reports of everything is perfect and calm. We may want reports that a storm has dissipated, and that's a little bit different than nothing is happening here type things. So that net will run active as long as there is a storm present that needs to be monitored, and traffic at that time is limited to spotters only. And then it will close when weather is no longer threatening, or we also are asked specifically not to spot beyond sundown at this point in time anyway. Although the net will stay open long enough to make sure that everybody has checked out. That's one additional point.
0 PRB.
Stand by, PRB. I'll get back to you there. That is one additional point as well, is that we try to keep track of our spotters on the net, and therefore somebody making a report usually is considered to be checked in, unless they indicate I'm not staying on the net. And that is because at the end we want to make sure everybody gets home, so we do check-outs, and anybody that doesn't check out is usually called or contacted some other way, just to ensure that nothing happened to them in a real emergency situation. Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I was wondering about reporting specific cloud structures, like mammatus clouds, wall clouds, etc. Is that something that should be recorded or reported and recorded, or do we just wait till something severe has happened?
Well, I think what you're asking. Let me find out if what you're asking is if there's a particular kind of cloud structure which may be threatening. That definitely would be reportable. I think just a wall cloud or shelf cloud with nothing happening. Well, again, that's another part of the criteria for reportability is there rotation in the cloud you're seeing. And that is always reported, as I recall. Anybody else want to fill in more details on that question about, cloud formations and the things that would be reportable?
EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
I just pulled out my trusty laminated cheat sheet that I got 2 years ago at the class, and I remember they specifically don't care about mammatus clouds. That was one of the slides. It's like, yeah, don't report that, we don't care. but per the guide, here's what they want reported. Tornadoes, persistent funnel clouds, persistent rotating wall clouds, wind gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour, and they prefer that that be measured and not estimated. Persistent flooding across roadways, rain in excess of 2 inches per hour measured, hail 1/2 inch or larger. They don't care about pea-sized hail, but they want to know about hail 1/2 inch or larger. Hazards such as downed power lines or debris in the roadway, and weather-damaged property, and 0 EMP.
Well, there you go, Greg. I could have probably gotten to that, but it would have taken me a little longer, so thank you for bringing that up there. Very good. Okay, any questions about the net itself, since that was something we had not covered yet?
I had a quick question, Kevin.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yesterday, day 2 of the bike ride I was working, the MS-150, we ended up down around Frederick, and there was a very scary-looking wall cloud coming through just north of there. They actually had to hold a bunch of riders in a building that was under construction, a concrete building that was open, and they got in there for some shelter. I was joking with James over text message whether we were going to have a combined special event and WeatherNet, but I'm curious if there was a spotter activation yesterday, and if you ran a net yesterday.
Does anybody know that? Because I do not.
Negative. They never did. KG6 UDT.
Okay, we had a double. UDT said no. Who else was in there?
K0ABK. That was a negative on spotter activation and no net. I was net control yesterday and kept an eye on everything, but no, nothing was called into me, and I was monitoring. So unless I missed it, as of now, there was no activation.
Okay, and certainly at that same time down in Platteville, they had a good 3 to 4 inches of pea-size hail in certain areas that Mike, DEG, was telling me about earlier. And that probably would have been reportable. Yeah, unfortunate that they didn't have a net. Does anybody know what I think what the recommended thing to do is, if you're not a spotter, I believe what they tell you on the NOAA weather radio is to contact the law enforcement agency to report things like that if you're not a spotter. Does anybody have any additional info on that? Okay. Well, I know that on SkyWarn Net, if there's a real emergency situation like that, we will take those reports, verifying that you don't have a spotter number, but you do have an emergency situation like that needs to be dealt with. We just don't encourage non-spotter number folks to check in unless there's something, of a real dire emergency. Just making observations about possible storms and that sort of thing. We're trying to make sure that stays with folks that have been gone through the training. But I don't believe any kind of emergency traffic is certainly not discouraged. If somebody has any other info about that, please do set me straight. Okay, so good question. No, I don't. I was kind of surprised also that we didn't end up with some sort of activation. That brings up another comment that was asked on this question. As a Skywarn spotter, does the Weather Service call you up in the middle of the night to go look at storms? Obviously not in the middle of the night, since they don't want people out there looking at things in the dark, because you really do need to have plenty of light to know what's going on. Do they generally call storm spotters? No. What they will do is call Skywarn net controls occasionally, or more than occasionally, and ask them to start a net. But on the weather, NOAA weather radio, and on the webpage, they will indicate spotter activation may be necessary at a certain time, or will be activated at a certain time, or is active now. Anybody have any additional information that way?
AVB.
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, just to kind of back up a little bit, they will sometimes call spotters. I've had calls here. Mike, DUS has had calls. There's various other people in specific areas where they don't have real good radar coverage. They will call. So it's infrequent, but it does happen. In terms of additional call-ups and things like that, they normally don't call in the middle of the night. The one thing they do take is spotter information on things that are at night when the people are calling from their home, and it's something that they're experiencing there. But they don't want people going out to track it. I think that's kind of the big difference. Becoming an active part of tracking it on the road is very different than stationary reports there, and that's kind of what they're after there. Hope that helps. K7ABV.
Yes, it does, and I do stand corrected, and I do remember that that has happened. It doesn't happen, as Randy said, frequently, but when they have only a few spotters in a specific area and they really have something going on out there, they may call to see if you can give them any more info about that. So, yeah, I do stand corrected. However, you can probably not expect to get a call very often, and if you're in an area where there are a lot of spotters, you may or may not ever get a call. But just depending on what they have need to know. So you're not in danger of having your phone ring off the hook, but you certainly might get a call in the right situations there. Very good. Any other information anybody wants to add to this?
Uniform Delta Tango.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, you know, I check in on the Aries net from Cheyenne, and they did a announcement last Sunday night. Either tonight or tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, they're doing on-the-air training. I don't know. I can't get into the repeater, but I can hear it. That's either 146.775 with a PL tone of 114.8, or the other one is up in Albany, and that's 147.165. Those two are always linked.
Okay, now do you know if that's the Weather Service giving that training or somebody from ARES? Do you know any more details?
I believe it's the leader of their spotter group that's doing it. I think they do it once a week.
Okay, and you don't know for sure what day and time that net runs?
It's either tonight or tomorrow night. It should be starting in about 5. Well, last time I looked, it was 5 minutes. It's at, like I said, it's at 1900, but I don't remember if it's tonight or tomorrow night. And I can't check because I don't think I have it in the handheld.
Okay, anybody want any more, need any fills on that information? We don't have it complete, but you could certainly take a look. There may be a Cheyenne ARES webpage, too, that a person could Google and find out more info. But as that is starting now, or has perhaps already started, we can't do much about that. You could certainly listen if you wanted. But anybody need any fills on just that bit of info we have? Okay. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. Anything else for anybody here?
A7 AVV.
Does anybody have other amateur radio technical questions? Anybody need help with something they've been trying to do and or understand or learn about that they'd like to ask about here?
AVV, related to the weather.
Go ahead, Randy.
You brought up when you were initially doing the opening that you'd include what types of things might you need, what types of things would be helpful, and I think those things are important to be answered as well. Such things as having an anemometer or some kind of wind measuring device, because the National Weather Service wants those things to be measured. They have a thing called Dwyer's Lyre that's available at many kite shops. Runs about $20, and unfortunately it doesn't go up as high as a lot of the anemometers will, but then there's a lot of anemometers that don't go as high as it does. So you do have to watch what you're finding, but if you know that the criteria, let me reset, is a minimum of 50-mile-an-hour winds, then you need something that measures in excess of that. Places like Amazon and There are some weather instrument places in Denver where you can be able to get handheld anemometers, or there are anemometers that you can be able to mount on a vehicle. When it comes to rainfall, they want that rainfall to be measured wherever possible. So having a weather station or a rain gauge that allows you to be able to measure that and be able to time how fast that comes in is helpful. Not required, but is helpful. And if you're going to be reporting that type of criteria, then you need to have those types of instruments. In terms of being able to figure out how big the hail is, having a 6-inch pocket ruler is one of those things that's real handy when you're out in the field, so you can be able to measure the diameters of those. Radio-wise, I don't know what the current standard for ARIES is, but I know that previously the standard had been a minimum of a 25-watt transmitter, and the reason for that is during the storm, oftentimes there will be rain curtains that will prohibit you from being able to get into the repeater with a copyable signal. So having an outside antenna and a minimum of 25 watts was one of the things that we used to have as a standard. So what that is now, somebody from ARIES would probably have to address that. Those would be some starters there, Kevin. K7ABV.
Okay, thank you. And that ruler would be helpful for water depth as well if you had a lot of water flowing on the road. Of course, they also say turn around, do not drown, so you're not going to walk into really, really deep water to measure it, but certainly 4, 5, 6 inches, that might be helpful as well. You've got to use good common sense. Phil, PRB, did I forget to come back to you when you wanted something a few minutes ago? I'm not sure.
It's K0PRB. Nope, everything's been answered. You're doing a fine job here, Kevin.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I couldn't remember for sure if I had come back to you there. So, yeah, thank you, Randy, for reminding me of that. We've talked about the costs already. Training is free, equipment is not. But you can buy some things that are not so expensive. Radio equipment is always going to be one of those things that you're going to have to fork out a little money for, especially if you want a good 25-watt mobile transceiver, and a good antenna on your car. The other thing that we're starting to use a lot more is APRS. It is not mandatory, but it's highly recommended so that net control can also keep track of where you are, and that will help in our net control is also supposed to always be watching the radar as well, so they can help keep track of where storms are in relation to where their spotters are, for the spotters' protection as much as for getting them where they need to be to see storms and that sort of thing. So that's another additional item to consider, but it's not a requirement. Any other subjects I was supposed to have touched on that I didn't? Any other questions for us regarding spotter requirements or as such?
N0WIQ checking in.
All right, Carrie, I got you checked in. Thank you very much. Hearing nothing more about weather spotter training, do we have any other amateur-related questions of a somewhat technical nature? This is not advanced topics necessarily. It can be newbie topics, even running your first radio. And none of that is a bad question to ask.
K1 DEG comment.
DEG, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I'm just going to throw it out there. I've got PRB written down on a piece of paper. I know him and Luann wants to do it. If there's anybody else that's willing to throw their name out there, I'll add them to the list. I'm going to do some searching and see about what we can do about getting one in this neck of the woods, a class.
Okay, so contact K1DEG, and he will probably be checking out some possibilities of setting up something else there if there's enough interest. We'll have to, of course, check with the. You'll have to, of course, check with the Weather Service and see what they're willing to offer as well. But never hurts to get the training. It never hurts to know what you're looking for. And for your own safety as well as for reporting to others. All right. Any other questions or comments for the TechNet this evening? I'd like some assistance on next week's topic. I have a list of topics, and I guess if I could, I'd like to get some input from you on what you might like to see coming up here. So I'm going to try to get it to come up here. Hold on a moment, and I will be back with more info here. Okay, some topics that have been suggested. The Arduino and Pi and how it's used in amateur radio. Best multiband antennas. Amateur radio license levels and why upgrade. Backcountry radio equipment. Bad weather antennas, mountain emergency stations. Software, digital communications, remote transmitter or transceiver technology, Echolink, types of stations, how to connect, NTS and traffic handling. What is a national traffic system? What is ARES? 3D printers. So there's a list of a few things that have been suggested to me. What strikes everybody's fancy for something coming up here?
WIQ, suggestion.
Okay, go ahead, Carrie.
Well, since we are using one, a lot of people don't quite understand networking. We might suggest at least a short article about networking.
Okay, networking and how it relates to amateur radio. Okay, very good. Any others I've mentioned that strike anybody's fancy particularly? Okay. And I guess what I will do is leave it open to my choice, and if you have any things you'd like to voice to us, the easiest way to contact us, I think, is via elmers@ncarc.net. Elmer was a name chosen for people that help other amateurs to get into amateur radio, or non-amateurs to help get them into amateur radio. The name Elmer stuck because of, I believe, an early amateur with that name that got people going. I may not have all that detail straight. So, elmers@ncarc.net. You can ask about the TechNet. You can suggest topics. You can ask questions that you would like us to pose on the TechNet. So email me there with topics or suggestions or things that you might like to see us cover. And in the meantime, I will figure out what we might cover for next week and post it on the website as soon as I can get it figured out. I thank all of you for your participation, and we'll close the net at this point, having, I think, covered the topic quite well. If you do have questions, you know how to email. You know how to email me at this point. So with that, I will say 73 and return the repeater to normal operation. Again, thank you, and 73 to all. N7GES, frequency is clear.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.